All right, I'm back after the weekend. I am fully caffeinated, and I saw quite the destroyed house on the way into work this morning. You guys take a close look at that, and you can see, to the trained eye, it's pretty clear what happened there. Not enough drywall fasteners, obviously. They should have checked the local code. Anyways, it's time to get back to it. I'm going to show you guys a whole lot more of the do's and don'ts. And after I finish explaining some of the rules, I'm going to break them all so that maybe you guys can get an even more in-depth understanding of how and what to do and when. Anyways, we better get right back to it because you're still watching the same video and I'm like all over the place because I just had, like a nice long weekend. Anyways, first things first we got to do here is, again, mark out all of the studs. On this wall here, I can see where they were. You can see all the nail holes where they had the old cabinets fastened. Those are the old school cabinets, so somebody installed the cabinets before the wall was even painted. And then on the other ones that have been painted, I can see the double nail pattern. So this is definitely that 70s project if they're doing the double nails. Right here. Right here. So if you have a double layer application like this and you're not sure, you can always get a nail. Okay, clearly there's something there. That's my favorite way to check, is just with a nail. Okay, so normally on a wall of this length, I would actually start hanging all horizontally. Typically on wood frame construction, you want to hang horizontally. Horizontally tends to actually strengthen the structure as a whole. So what I mean is perpendicular to the framing members. If all your framing members are upright, then you want to hang it perpendicular to it. So same on the ceiling. You generally want to hang perpendicular because it tends to add more structure to the structure. Again, maybe they didn't hang perpendicular in that collapsed garage, but yeah, you want to hang perpendicular to your framing members. However, like I said, I'm going to be breaking the rules a little bit on this one, so I'm going to hang vertically, and I need a length for that. 91.5. 91.5 gets small there, so we could even do 91.25. Whew, that's 92.25. So what is it, the ceiling or the floor? The ceiling's actually barely level. Floor is way out. So I'm gonna go to my smallest measurement. Let's go 91.5 will fit. Barely, but it'll fit. As for width, I want to land it on a framing member, so I drew a line right there. That is 44. 91.5 by 44. Okay, 91.5. Little knife mark right there. And we want this to be 44, so a 4-inch rip will do. Okay, I made a mistake here. That was a little bit dumb. I forgot to do my T-square cut before I finished my rip. Oh well. Now once you cut it down from 48, T-square doesn't work anymore. That's a pretty easy fix. Just another slide cut. Okay, because we were double layer wood frame, we got to use some 2-inch screws. Man, I thought I gave this more space, but something's just so out of square. There we go. That's going to be good enough. Okay, 2-inch screws. Now hopefully we are where we need to be here. Well, that one didn't hit anything. Let's try a little bit over this way. Good. Okay, and that means there's going to be enough room for the next one to bite. 2-inch screws are a little trickier, especially into old wood, but nothing you shouldn't be able to handle. Okay, time for another box. So we have 51 down, and we have 14 and 1/8 over. And this one, I marked the bottom corner of the box. So this box is like this, and I marked this bottom corner. All right, this one is giving me major grief and I couldn't tell you why. So I'm gonna cut it right about here. I knew I was going wide on that side. So if you ever find it's not working out, you know, you can always stop and cut a little bit out and try and figure out what's going on. So I have a little patch to do here, but the rest of it's fine. It just was digging in weirdly for some reason. So if you haven't done a lot of drywall, and especially if you have a sheet hung vertically, it never hurts to mark stuff out a little bit. So right here I'm leveling down, and even though I can pretty easily eyeball it for most of the way, this way, especially if I draw it in the middle of the sheet, it's just going to help me not miss that one, because getting the missed screws sucks. And that's another big beginner mistake that people make, is not pulling out the missed screws after they put them in. And so I'll show up to a job and there's screws halfway sticking out all over the place. And it's like, what did you think I was gonna do with those? Like, now I have to do it. You hung the drywall but didn't finish the work. Okay, here's another beginner mistake. It's not uncommon to have to click your drill a little bit deeper for the inside corners. So now that I'm at an inside corner, I'm gonna go one deeper. And it takes a little bit of a twist of the wrist to get these to go in real nice. Of course, it might just be that there's actually nothing to attach it to. Yep. What do you know? There is no wood in this inside corner. And I couldn't tell that because, well, there was drywall in front of it. So what are we gonna do about that? Okay, I'll show you guys what I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to try and do is I'm gonna take the head of my drill off. Just trying to spin these screws out. So ripping the screws out is faster, but it blows out the paper. Anyways, that's getting too technical. Now I'm going to try angling this screw. Okay, there was something there, but of course I'm blowing out the drywall. Okay, so when there is nothing in the corner, at least not close enough that you can use the drill square with the head, what I do is I take it off, take off the attachment, and I go close into the corner at a very slight angle. So, and then go slow when you get to this part. So as you can see, it's gonna tear the paper a little bit. It's not perfect, but in this situation, when there's nothing out here to fasten to, that's the best you're gonna get. All right, let's see if we can get a little rhythm going here. So normally when you're using a drywall drill and you start to get proficient with it, what you do is instead of going in slowly like I've been doing with these, you actually, there should be a little thing on here that helps it. Took me 3 times to make it work, but there's a little lock on most drills. And that'll keep the motor running indefinitely. With a battery operated drill, it does drain the battery pretty fast though. It's gonna happen sometimes. Okay, sometimes you get a stubborn one, and again, you can either pull it out or just go with it and destroy your bit. I just chose to go with it and destroy the bit. Let's get another one here. That one's in better. Okay, so we got some fun stuff here, a lot of geometry going on, but we'll get into that in a minute. But another big mistake that people make all the time, so we hung these vertically. That's pretty straightforward, you know, like get your measurements, stand them up, drill them in. So what if you're hanging horizontally in the typical fashion? So another mistake that some people will make is they will start hanging on the bottom. So they'll get a 4-foot sheet, they'll just stand it up here and screw it in. So again, you remember I mentioned that you always want to be measuring from a couple points of reference, and you always want to work your way around a room. So if I'm in a room, I'm going to start on one wall, and I'm going to work all the way around, always butting my next sheets up to the last one I just did. So that way you're always ensuring tight joints, and then you have a little wiggle room. So for example, on this one, if I was boarding this wall, like I would hang my sheet on this wall and I would give this side a 1/4 inch, and then my next board that comes from here, boom, covers that 1/4 inch gap. So that way I'm not struggling with sheets that are too tight, and I'm also not getting gaps in the work. And when you're doing the last sheet in between two walls, you know what? If you cut it like a 1/4 inch short and you have a little gap on each side, oh well. And you know what? You'll be surprised how often that 1/4 inch seems to disappear and you wind up almost tight. So again, in drywall, it's super important to not be trying to cut stuff too tight. Okay, now we're gonna get into that thing again where you wanna start on the top. And the reason you do that is because, so you should always be hanging your ceilings first. If you're doing a drywall job, the reason you hang your ceilings first is so that every sheet butts up against the ceiling and you don't end up with a gap all the way around the ceiling. So again, as you can see, we're always butting every sheet up to the last one we just hung. However, in this case, I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I am actually gonna start on the bottom. And the reason is, once I hang this sheet here, there will be a line at 4 feet that I can now measure from. And I have all these funky angles and weird things to measure. And so if I wind up with a gap along the top, okay. But the point is, it's gonna make it way easier for me to measure all of this kind of stuff. Another thing you wanna think of, and I see this one a lot, let's say you're hanging a basement suite with 7-foot ceilings. So what most people would do is they'll struggle to hang that first 4-foot sheet on the 7-foot ceiling. And if you're a tall guy like me, that means you're like holding the sheet down here. And then when you're finished, it means you've got a joint at 3 feet all the way around. Most ceilings are 8 feet. That's why we use 2 rows of 4-foot tall or 4-foot wide sheets. So what I usually do on those kind of jobs, and it doesn't take too long, but I'll just set up a laser or something and I will make a mark at 4.5 feet all the way around. So I have a line on all of my studs to get a quick measurement, and then I'll actually cut my top boards at 3 feet. So when the job is finished, I still have the joint all the way around the room at a comfortable working height of 4 feet, not 3 feet. Believe me, you do one basement suite with a 3-foot high joint, or you do a 2-foot cutout like from a restoration, a water repair damage, you do one of those and you're gonna see why it's so important to get that joint back up to working height. Okay, but anyways, like I said, I'm gonna give myself a quick mark here at 4 feet and a quick level line. And you might be thinking, Ben, why are you gonna go horizontal when you started hanging them vertically, standing up? Well, because I need to show you more mistakes you can make. Okay, all I really need to know is that I've got 3 things that need to be measured out. So one of the things I often do before I put a sheet on the wall and router it is I might count the amount of things that need to be cut out. So in this case, I just knew I had 3 things. So I knew that by the time I finished this sheet, there had to be 3 things that were routered out. So there we have them. Okay, but now we are about to get into the nitty-gritty of hanging drywall. So this is one of the things that separates even the pros from like the really good pros. So that is picking which stud or joist to land your butt joints onto. And I know a lot of you guys are thinking, why do you have a factory edge going up to a butt joint? We'll get into that. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. But picking which joist or stud to place your butt joint onto. So this is so important because what you have to imagine is that every time you make a butt joint, you're going to be bringing up the surface of the wall or ceiling by at least 1/8 of an inch. So a lot of the time, if you take a straight edge and you go across a ceiling, what you will notice is that sometimes you get a joist or a truss that sticks down more. And so that's going to make it rock on there. And if you put the butt joint on the one that's hanging down lower, so they can sometimes be hanging down lower up to as much as 1/2 an inch. It's crazy the variation that you'll see from a truss factory or a bowed stud in the wall. So if you go and put it on there, you take it from being 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch to sometimes as bad as like 3/4 of an inch. So it's really important that you check the framing, and instead of just willy-nilly hanging the whole ceiling or the wall, you actually check, okay, I got a 12-foot board. Now I need to see, where does that land? Oh, this one sticks down a ton. I better cut it back 1 joist. Because that's another thing. What happens when you go 1 over from the down joist and you put a joint there, if you have a good finisher and they actually build that out, that gives them a natural opportunity to float out that inconsistency. But general practice is to try and go a little bit even further away, like maybe 2 away from it. But sometimes you run the risk of it starting to go like that. Okay, so I had to explain that to now explain why I chose to do what I've done with this wall and why we have a joint right here. So you see that this is a corner bead. Well, for whatever reason, whoever installed this corner bead in the last reno had it sticking out like 3/8 of an inch. Like this wall hooks. So I'm going to bring you guys up closer and show you what I mean. Okay, we are tight to the stud, tight to the stud, tight to the stud, tight, tight to the corner, and then look at this. Check that out. Like, that sticks out so much. So as you guys can see, that's sticking out. I mean, it's at least 1/2 an inch, if not more. So we're gonna do something about that. So my original thought process with this, you know, I saw this and I thought, whoa, that's pretty bad. I didn't realize that it's actually, guys, that's almost 3/4 of an inch. That is insane. So this is sticking out like 3/4 of an inch more than this part of the wall. So my original thought was, well, that's a perfect place to put a joint because, you know, I'll screw this tight and then all of a sudden we got to build this out. But I mean, even if we screw that tight, we are now going to be looking at 1/2 an inch. So I would have to build this whole section out 1/2 an inch. So while at first it seemed like a good place to put a joint, and it would be if it was only 1/4 inch. In fact, that would really help straighten out this wall to have the joint be right here. But it's still not enough. So that brings me to another mistake that people make all the time, and that is not shimming out the studs when it would make a big difference to do that before they hang the board. So as you can see, I have this board hung right here. We're halfway there, but it's not too late for me to pull these screws and add a shim. I'm gonna cut a 1/4 inch shim, and we're gonna put that in there, and that's gonna majorly help take the hump out of the wall. It'll be a long rolling undulation, but it's not gonna be a huge hump and then dip. Okay, let's be clear here though. If you're a drywaller, you're kind of off the hook. So you should have looked for the down joist or the out stud and not put the joint there. That's what a really good drywaller should do, but it's not on the drywaller to be adding shims to the framing. So where that lies, that responsibility lies to the homeowner and the general contractors, the carpenters. If you guys haven't looked for that stuff and made your framing right or done it while they're there, then it's on you. Because most drywallers do not show up to the site with a package full of shims or a table saw to make it right. Like, again, it's on the homeowner or the GC. This is going to be a bit of a pain, I think, but it's going to be a lot better than floating that out or messing around with cabinets that are trying to hang cabinets on a wall with a bow like that in it. So hopefully we can get this in here just right. Oh. I don't want this to go behind here. Yeah. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure. That screw should help me be able to pull that out. There we go, good. Yes, the glazier's bar wins again. Or beekeeper's tool. Okay, you guys. So this brings me to some more common mistakes. All right, you can use the same screws. That's no problem. But don't put them back in the same holes. It's already blown out and torn. You're gonna have to put them back in different holes. Oh, that one hurt. Ah. Show you guys that in a second. That's gonna need a Band-Aid. So maybe that can be another mistake, pushing on the drill while your thumb's still in the way. Ow! There it is. Less than pleasant, but not too bad. Now let's take a look at this. As we can see, it's tight there. And then we got that. Looking fantastic. All right, now let's take a look. So as we can see, you know, it's still, like if we split the difference, we got a 1/4 inch there, we got about a 1/4 inch there. But when we push it tight on this side, we can see there's about 1/8 of an inch. So once we tape that and float it out, it's gonna be even flatter than it was. So that's looking pretty good. So with a little careful planning, you can actually make stuff work out better. So again, we put the joint here because it'll help build it out even more. Because if I put the joint over there or over here, it would just make the wall wavier. So now we just have one big long wave instead of multiple waves, or a massive wave that's gonna require 1 inch of mud. Okay, we have lots more to get to, but I need a Band-Aid, some lunch, and a coffee.